Hello and welcome to another Teal Tinted Glasses. Tonight we do the hockey goaltender, NHL goaltender tier list slash pyramid. We will take another ride on the coaching carousel, and who knows what else we'll discuss. It's all going to happen next on Teal Tinted Glasses. But before we start, as always, if you want to be a part of the show, be sure to hit us up in either the YouTube chat. You can also hit us up on the social medias, Twitter, Facebook, I guess, if you use Facebook, or anywhere else. You can find us always at Teal Tinted Glasses. Other than that, though, it's time to get this party started. And it is me. I am the only one on camera today, but that's okay. With me, of course, as always, is not only Mr. Kevin Lacey, but also Mr. Hockey Jerk. And tonight it is going to be an interesting show because, again, we are doing the pyramid tier list thingy. I kind of, the initial idea was like, I thought like, because I want to do a prospect pyramid sometime this summer, right? And I thought, okay, but what if we did just like something else random? And then when I realized how many goalies were going to be on this list, I thought, okay, it's probably not really fair to Puck Guy to try and cram all this into like a geometrical shape. So it kind of morphed into this tier list thing, but I am hoping that everyone is excited and good to be here. Kevin Lacey, how are you doing?
And if you need a little excitement, snap into a Slim Jim. Oh, yeah. So I'm doing well. I'm sorry that I missed hanging out with you boys on Sunday night. I went to a wedding last minute. The wedding wasn't last minute, just my invite was last minute. So, but I had a lot of fun, and you guys had a really good show. I listened to it on Monday. Because for those of you who don't catch these shows live, of course, you can always catch them on your favorite podcatcher. But I'm excited to be here, and sure, quick turnaround since the last show, but tons of stuff going on in the hockey world. So, yeah, let's get cracking. But first, Mr. Hockey Jerk.
Well, I think more than anything, the most important thing that needs to be said here, and you know, Ian and I agreed with this on the side. If this couple that you went to the wedding for, if they get divorced, you know you're off the podcast, right?
Well. Here's the thing. So far, at weddings that I was invited to last minute, up into this, it was 1 for 1. So right now they're still married, so technically it's 2 for 2, and I hope it stays that way.
Yeah, so do we. But you know, don't miss the podcast again, chump.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing, guys. So you know, we have this rich history of causing coaches to be fired around the NHL, mostly caused by me. And I'm starting to think it's all caused by me because Sunday night during the show, I wasn't around and Peter DeBoer got hired by Dallas. So, you know, I guess big things happening. But more coaches hired around. Even Matt Cartner, the former Shark, is the new head coach of the Orlando Solar Bears. I had to throw that in there. So congratulations. There's your Sharks tie-in for the night. So
One of the best like sweaters in hockey. The Orlando Solar Bears. I love it.
Oh my God.
So great.
I love
so
it too.
Good. Hockey Jerk, I have bad news.
Okay, let's hear it.
We upset the good people of Edmonton.
We did. I'm not too upset about it, I'll be honest with you.
It's gone worse for me than for you. I was actually I had some government people call me and they said that I need to hand over my Canadian passport. So I'm coming to live with you. Sorry.
Hey, that's okay.
All right.
There's no state tax here,
Well,
so
I can't wait.
you're making
I can't wait to join the fun and piss off the good folks at Edmonton tonight. So here we go.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's cool, right? Like, I mean, it's cool. Like, I appreciate obviously people watching the show. And I always like, you know, I like hearing different opinions. Like, obviously I don't think that my opinion or our opinion is like the be all and end all. So I enjoy the conversation. Yeah. So aside from that,
but that's the thing, right? Like the whole point of this is it's, you know, what is your favorite team or your favorite league or your favorite player doing, or, you know, doing well or doing poorly from the perspective of a Sharks, dare I say, commentator. And, you know, if we don't understand something, I mean, I don't really know why that's a big surprise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same
I don't know.
time, you know, most of the comments that we did receive were almost as if we had to do with the outcome of the game. Like, I know one of them was saying, well, if the Oilers didn't get a high sticking penalty, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't remember calling a high sticking penalty.
I didn't.
Like, I don't know if you, yeah. So I'm like, I don't really know. I don't know why you're, campaigning to us, but all right.
Yeah. If the Oilers had only won 4 games, they'd still be playing.
Yeah. if we were the Oilers, we would have simply just beat Colorado.
That's true. That's true. You know, it's cool because there's 3 of us on here, and actually, the coolest thing. So, trying to earn back my Canadian citizenship, I was watching the Memorial Cup earlier, and
Yeah.
you want to hear something absolutely insanity? So this year,
The fact that they're barely covering it on NHL Network.
well, that's normal. Here's the insanity. The overtime period for the round robin game today between Edmonton Oil Kings and the St. John Sea Dogs, 20-minute 3-on-3.
Hey, now that's
20 minutes.
Wow,
20-minute 3-on-3.
Ooh.
that's awesome.
Now,
Insanity.
how long did it take for a goal?
It took a while.
Don't
Like
tell me
I
what
thought
the
it was gonna be quick, but it was well into the first half of the overtime when the
Okay.
Edmonton Oil King finally scored a goal, and they keep themselves alive. But the Sea Dogs, I give the Sea Dogs a lot of credit because I think coming into this tournament, they got bounced early in the Q playoffs. They're the host team. They brought in a new coach for the Memorial Cup itself, and they beat Hamilton and they took the Oil Kings to overtime. So I mean, credit to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, I'm gonna borrow a slinger from Keenan Thompson, who hosted the NHL Awards show on Tuesday, and say, "Man, what are the Oilers fans harping on us about? Edmonton's still playing hockey, just maybe not NHL hockey, but they got the Memorial Cup. Quit complaining."
Yeah.
I thought you were referring to the hypothetical Stanley Cup final that we're going to get to enjoy. After
Between the
no
Leafs
one
and the
else.
Oilers,
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
Leafs,
no.
Leafs and Oilers. For the
the hypothetical Stanley Cup.
Yeah, how many years has the NHL been in existence? 105. So for the 105th year in a row, the hypothetical Stanley Cup final. And
I
yes,
like it.
Kevin, I said final as in one.
One final, one game. By the way, that series is being officiated by the Montreal Canadiens. So
Cool. I love it.
Well, there you have it.
Keeping up with the Canadian content. Well, not really. I mean, kind of, sort of. I mean, Paul Maurice, obviously halfway through the season, was like, I don't really want to coach anymore. And it turns out he just didn't want to coach in Winnipeg anymore.
Oh, okay.
Because he is
they
the
didn't have Wi-Fi?
new coach of the Florida Panthers.
Do they have better Wi-Fi in Florida?
I'd assume so.
More sunshine.
Definitely more sunshine.
He's not old by any. I mean, he's old in the sense that he's been around forever, but he's a young guy relative to the other coaches in the NHL.
Yeah.
So, maybe he's getting an early start on his, convertible driving sun tanning
I see
lifestyle.
where you're going with this. Yeah. Good for Paul Maurice. Honestly, that coaching change is, I don't know if it's perplexing because...
It's perplexing.
It is perplexing.
It is, but think about it, though. The Panthers kept that interim tag on Andrew Brunette, the entire season and the playoffs. And I always found that to be a little strange. Like, if they were serious about keeping him as their head coach, I think they would have taken off that interim tag back in January, February, somewhere around that time. So,
Yeah.
I know, and there are a lot of people, myself included, who, when this first came out, were kind of like, oh, the Brunette kind of got jobbed a little bit on this whole situation. But, the fact that they're giving him, they're going to essentially offer him a new role, or maybe it's his previous role as an assistant coach, I don't know. But they're, the fact that they're going to offer him a new role, it makes me wonder if, maybe he didn't want to be a head coach. We've seen it. And, Kevin, you you always make the example about Joe Will. Some
Joe
people,
Will. Yeah,
some
I was
people
going
prefer,
to.
some people prefer to be, the co-captain, so to speak, or the co-pilot.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I've been an assistant captain on my hockey team for like 14, 16 years, something right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I have no problem with that.
And you know what? The other thing as well to keep in mind, and we dabbled in this a little bit last time, but this is now the fourth or fifth coach that's been hired in recent weeks that's gotten like a crazy contract.
Yeah, a lot of money. Yeah, Lanical in the chat, basically Brunette was tactically spanked, but he stayed the course. I give Andrew Brunette a lot of credit though. I mean, he came in
Yes.
after Coach Quenneville obviously had to step down. This team had a lot of expectations on it this year to do really well. And did they live up to those expectations? Maybe not in the playoffs because they still couldn't climb the mountain that is the Tampa Bay Lightning. But other than, regular season, great, right? So I don't know. It's
Sorry. I apparently I'm in a very punny mood right now,
Okay.
but you said the mountain that is the Tampa Bay Lightning. I want you to start referring to them as Big Thunder Mountain.
I'll do my best.
Yeah, but for me, like I think that's a really good point. The Panthers could have crumbled when Quenneville left the helm, basically, and Andrew Brunette, who had no head coaching experience to my knowledge at any level, and certainly not in the NHL. That was those were big shoes to follow. I mean, talking about the crazy contracts that coaches have gotten in the last few weeks, Jerk, that all started with Coach Quenneville getting a monster deal in Florida there. So, I mean, the other coaches have him to thank for that. What's up?
Yeah, I just think it's crazy. We've seen a handful of coaches, a very small handful, like a baby handful of coaches getting these big contracts. Mike Babcock in Toronto comes to mind. Really, that's the only one that comes to mind. And then everybody else was kind of much, much lower on the totem pole. Joe Quenneville is
Babcock is like $6 million to coach the Leafs.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And now, you look and Cap Friendly doesn't have it for Paul Maurice, but what I saw was, 3 seasons, $4 million a season. Pete DeBoer is at 4.25. I believe John Tortorella is also at 4. He's at 4. And Bruce Cassidy, who got the most lucrative deal easily, his deal was 5 years, and it was $4.5 million. So it's kind of becoming normal that coaches are getting pretty big bags. And I know like Cassidy, I think is worth the money. I think depending on who you ask, maybe Paul Maurice is not worth that money, but I think he is personally.
I think he's a good coach.
But then you have guys, and I look at like, am I paying DeBoer? Would I pay DeBoer $4 million? No, I wouldn't pay Torts $4 million. I don't know that I would pay, really any coach that's available $4 million. And it's, similar to how I guess the normal player salary has grown the last 15 years. I guess we're starting to see that with coaches, and I mean, good for them, right? But I just
Absolutely.
I don't really know what a coach does. I'll be totally honest with you. Like I do, but it's like, how much are you impacting the game?
I think
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say to that point, Jerk, that's also where I think the Florida Panthers might be fine, because the Panthers may have also, as another point to everything else we brought up, maybe it's a situation where Panthers management said, look, there was really no difference between Quenneville and Brunette, so we could pretty much have anyone who we want behind the bench, and we still have the roster to carry the way. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but I think it goes along with your point there, Jerk, is that if that is true, then Brunette's not a loss for the Panthers.
I would love to get paid $4 million to fill out a lineup card.
I mean, I think there's more to it than that. But here's the thing that I think, like, that with the salary cap being what it is, right? Like, I think this is how, and I think this is what they said when Toronto signed Babcock to that $6 million deal. Like, this is how the Habs are going to continue to have, because they can afford to pay, a coach, because that doesn't count against the cap. So you can spend a ton of money on a all-star coaching staff, and it doesn't matter if you have the money to do it. And if you want to bring in like the best people and pay them, you're free to do it, because it doesn't count against the cap. It's all money that's outside of the system.
I mean, I know this is like way down the rabbit hole, but what are your thoughts on coaches' contracts counting against the cap? Like, is that just getting way too into the weeds, or is that something that's...
It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
It doesn't make any sense the way that the system is set up. Like, coaches counting against the cap would be fine, but they're not, like, you know what I mean? Like, the reason the salary cap is the way it is because it's the owner's money versus the player's money, right? And everything has to be copacetic. That's in the owner's part of it. So if the owners want to spend a bunch of money on a coach, that should be fine, because that doesn't... you're not splitting that money between the coaches and the owners and the players. Like, that's all the owner's pot.
That's fair.
But I was going to bring up the same exact point, but I already kind of had a counter argument to it, in that I think 99% of the time they're going to use that money to pay a player.
Mm-hmm.
And so the coaches would essentially get screwed on getting raises, better salaries, because that money is going to get tied into signing, like Pittsburgh, our show from a couple weeks ago, how Pittsburgh, what were they going to do? Signing Letang and signing Malkin and giving Gensel a raise and all that stuff, and Rust a raise. Like, that money would have to go into the roster, not to the coach.
Yeah.
And they'd be screwed.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's good food for thought.
I don't see a reason for it.
Right. And that was, and I personally, I don't think it's a very smart idea, but it's one of those things that kind of, it crosses your mind. You think, well, I'm curious to know what other people think,
Yeah. And I want to appreciate Skylar quickly for giving us an update on the score. 2-2. Yay. I mean, if you're listening just later, this is completely useless information to you, but I do appreciate Skylar giving us the score, because obviously, look, we wanted to do this show. For those that don't know, I'm going on vacation next week, so I didn't want it to be a long stretch between shows, so we kind of had to like figure out a show that worked for all three of our schedule, and tonight was the night that worked. Hockey game be damned. But I do appreciate you guys following along in the chat, and B, keeping us updated on the score.
Yes,
and if you are listening to us as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you are not listening live, if you're listening on delay, say maybe Thursday morning on your way to work, Thursday afternoon on your way home, let us know who won the game, because we don't know yet.
Wow. And I was just going to say, send in your thoughts to our Twitter account.
Yeah, and,
there you go. Regarding, like, should coaches be paid as much as they have been lately, or should coaches count towards the salary cap? We like your feedback too. This is your show as well. So
absolutely. I'm gonna hit a couple YouTube comments here, and then we're gonna get down to brass tacks here. Lanico coming back in the chat saying Peter DeBoer isn't worth $4 million, but hey, name recognition and post situations are key. Yeah, I mean, Peter DeBoer, early Peter DeBoer is usually good for a team. So if Dallas is looking to take one last, absolute run at it, you could do worse than Peter DeBoer. I just don't like Peter DeBoer there long term. Skylar obviously bringing up, like, obviously plus coaches are difficult because we're not in the room, so we don't see 90% of the work they do. Absolutely. No argument there.
Yeah, I think with specifically with DeBoer, I know I said it on the podcast, and I believe Kevin even tweeted it as well, is, he signed a 4-year deal there, but I think we're all kind of in agreement that, he's really only maybe guaranteed those first 2 years.
First 2 years.
Like, and I even said on the podcast, like, when Calgary hires him in the third year of that deal, it's going to be awesome, so.
Well, what I tweeted was that Jason Robertson's, Dallas is going to have to make Jason Robertson happy in year number 3 when he's only getting 12 minutes a night with Peter DeBoer as head coach. So that's why DeBoer only has a 2-year shelf life. I like your point before the show, Jerk. You want to share that about how this helps the Sharks?
Oh, yeah. I'll be honest. I actually forgot where you were going with that for a second. I got really nervous. No, I think what makes this really interesting, and as we've talked about, I think this is a horrible decision for Dallas. But from a Sharks perspective, to be selfish, to put on my teal tinted glasses, I wonder, and this is largely bullshit, so bear with me. But
I talking out of our asses.
Yeah, but
that's
I wonder
half the show anyway,
right?
Guys, so.
But I wonder if Brent Burns would look at that and say, I played well under Pete DeBoer. Maybe I do want to go there.
Yeah, I've been on that Burns to Dallas train for 4 years now, guys.
He lives there. Him and AJ's buddy Pavelski is on the team. I mean, it's it seems like it's the place to be.
Is Steve Spott going to run that power play?
Oh, dude! If he doesn't, I'll be surprised.
Hey, so that's a good point that we haven't brought up about DeBoer, and I haven't seen anyone else bring up, is that Steve Spott follows him everywhere. Some coaches have their assistants that travel everywhere. That's kind of what makes the Lane Lambert signing with the Islanders a little surprising, just because he's always been Trotz's guy. Yep. So, to be continued on that assistant coaching staff, because I know that none of them were returning. Not one coach was returning to the staff for next season. So,
really quick, last thing on coaches, and then we can get to the goalies. Yeah. Partially, this one's for you, Skyler, because we want to know how this affects the Maple Leafs. But also, Ian talked about it, and we talked about contracts, and mentioned the Mike Babcock contract as kind of being the high watermark, so to speak. That deal to coach the Maple Leafs was $50 million over 8 years. Like, 6.25 for those who don't have a calculator. Like, that's a player's contract right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not too far off the William Nylander contract.
Yeah, but I mean, when you print money, like, that's like, I think more teams should do stuff like that. Like, I think when there's like a heavy competition for a thing, and I obviously I understand that some owners are not gonna want to pay a top tier coach $8 million, but like if you're a big market team that just prints money,
mm-hmm.
why wouldn't you?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, get the guy you want, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to do our goalie pyramid tier lists, whatever you want to call it. So basically, I'm going to kind of give you a rundown, and then how we did this. So
explain how the rankings are and how we tiered everybody.
Okay, so here's the criteria that I initially laid out, and then Kevin went all rogue on us, which is fine.
Could you expect any less?
No. I absolutely, and I would have played along, but I had already sent my stuff to Puck Guy, and that's the other thing. Before we start this, I just want to again for those that have been around Teal Tinted Glasses or Teal Town USA, Teal Tinted Glasses, whatever, Teal Town USA, one of the big glue pieces to this entire operation is Puck Guy. Puck Guy, with a day's notice, threw together a bunch of graphics for us so we could do the show tonight, and I cannot thank him enough, because I kind of just sprung it on him last second. I'm like, hey, I need 17 graphics. You want to do them? Maybe? And of course, Puck Guy, being the absolute badass motherfucker that he is, came through in the clutch like always. And I just think that as much as we definitely Puck Guy can definitely be on the butt end of a lot of our jokes on air, off air, he is the glue that holds this place together, and I cannot thank him enough.
He really is. We love you, Puck Guy. We thank you for everything that you do. We should show more appreciation on air, so we're trying to do that right now. We love you off air as well. But for those of you who are listening and everything like that, Puck Guy's amazing, and we can't thank him enough for the hard work that he puts into Teal Town USA.
Absolutely. All right, so down to business. So basically, you guys have seen tier lists on the internet, right? You go S, A, B, C, whatever. So here was the criteria I set up. The initial criteria that I set up was goalies that played more than 25 games, just so to try and make sure that we weren't here for 4 hours. In the 21-22 season, so a lot of like my list, like that's the criteria I went with. So S tier, or your pyramid top, is obviously the absolute best of the best. I don't think our picks there are going to surprise you. The A tier, second tier of your pyramid. This is the elite goalies. Maybe not tippy top, but absolutely elite. The B tier is going to be your non-elite starter, so a guy who isn't elite, but he will start a bunch of games for you, or a 1A goalie, a guy who will be the better half of your goalie pontoon. C tier, serviceable backup, 1B goalie.
C. Tierney?
Yes, Chris Tierney. Chris Tierney, serviceable backup, 1B goalie. And then we have like Kevin made a D tier. D's for dud.
So just for clarification, my D tier was just because I was like, this is the extreme low end of my C tier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you actually honored my D tier, thank you. But I did mention that it's technically my C tier that I'm just not impressed with.
Again, puck guy in the clutch.
There you go.
And then the F tier is the F is for how the fuck are you still in the NHL? Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So let's get to it. All right, so let's start with the S tier, because I think the S tier is pretty. I think everyone's gonna know what our S tier is, and it's gonna be fine. And then after that, the hot takery bakery is open, baby.
Will it be fine? I don't know.
Now, to mention, I believe potential is also factoring into these tiers for some people.
And it's funny because I do want to talk after we do the whole thing, because I kind of want to talk, because I think anytime we do this, right, we pick a topic, I think we always go in with probably some preconceived conceptions.
Mm-hmm.
And then we actually have to like do some homework, which we rarely do on this show, but let's pretend we do.
I did none.
Let's pretend we do a little bit of homework, and then sometimes like those opinions are obviously going to change, right? So I'm curious to see like if your guys' perceptions that you went into this with, I'm curious to see if they changed after you were done. But let's get to the S tier. The S tier is right here, baby. Everybody has it the same. The top of the goalie pyramid, it is Igor Shesterkin. It is Andrei Vasilevsky. I don't think there's much to discuss there. These guys are the tippy top of the iceberg, and they are in a class of their own.
So I have the YouTube replay. I have it on my computer, and it's a bit behind our live feed. So I don't know. I'm just guessing, but I got $2 down that Kevin did the Russian spelling of Shesterkin's name.
I did not, but here's the thing. Every time I type the name, I do type with Styork, and then I change it going, oh, wait.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, like, again, this is kind of, I don't think anyone's going to argue here. I think the one thing that we are going to try, like we did try to fight as best we could, is recency bias, but what are you going to do? I don't think this is recency bias, though. I think like the Shesterkin has been just good no matter how good that Rangers team has been. And Andrew Vasilevsky's Andrew Vasilevsky. Like there's just no, I don't know. There's probably nothing here to discuss. Am I right?
No, I mean, yeah, I think even if both teams had missed the playoffs, I think we would still agree that they're the best of the best. And I think you, at least in my tier, I can't speak for any of you guys, but there are a couple situations of that where a particular goalie was ranked despite how well or not well they did the last year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, and I think I might have done the opposite a little bit, but we're gonna find out here. All right, so
I wanted to say the one goalie that I thought maybe could be in this tier would be Connor Hellebuck, but here's my thing. Shesterkin and Vasilevsky are so far ahead of the curve that I visually pictured them standing on top of the freaking pyramid with their arms in the air.
So,
like above that tier.
yeah.
Like I mean, when I got down to my rankings and everything like that, I was like, there's more A goalies than I really thought there were, at least in my tier.
Yep.
But to me, Vasilevsky and Shesterkin are a cut and a half above my A tier.
When I was looking at potential, go ahead, Jerk.
I was just gonna say, I think it's worth saying that there are some goalies who are in the A tier that I think are sniffing the S tier.
Yeah.
Kevin, or I believe, one of you mentioned Connor Hellebuck, and I could see it. That's not who I was thinking of that you were going to say, but I could see it. And I think for me, there was the challenging thing for me is not so much as are there more elite goalies than just Shesterkin and Vasilevsky, but more so, do I need to throw the rule book out the window and put a tier between S and A?
There you go.
Yeah, I when I was doing this, I think that was the one thing I said. I said I should have put another tier in and split up the A tier. But the other guy who I could see sniffing up there is Ilya Sorokin.
Yep, same.
So that is.
I'm not there yet, but he did have a fabulous season on an island. Like what you're talking about with if the Vasilevsky and Shesterkin, if they were on teams that didn't even make the playoffs, they'd still be there. Mm-hmm. That's where you can make that case. Look at Sorokin. The Islanders aren't a terrible team, but they played pretty poorly this season.
Yeah, they were.
But
brutal.
The one guy who didn't and whose stats show he's an excellent goalie is Ilya Sorokin.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to move into the A tier, and the Hot Takery Bakery is now open, people. We're open for business. And we're going to start off with Kevin Lacey's list. I'm going to read off Kevin Lacey's list, and then we are going to go, then we can...
Gonna bash it right off the bat. And then show bash Kevin Lacey's list, and then show the real actual...
No. It just happened to be the way that it got put together. All right, so Kevin Lacey's A tier list... off the top, Carter Hart, Darcy Kemper, Jacob Markstrom, John Gibson, Marc-Andre Fleury, Sergei Bobrovsky, Thatcher Demko, Connor Hellebuck, Frederik Anderson, Jake Ottinger, UC Saros, Kachetov. I can't even do this. Help me, Kevin. Kachetkov?
Yeah, it's Peter Kachetkov. I do want to mention, I like how Carter Hart is featured in the graphic, and I'm like, he's barely on my A tier, but apparently he's the face of my A tier. So all those things we said about you, puck guy, are out the door.
Oh, wow.
I'm just kidding. For me, UC Saros is the face of this group, but I digress. Continue.
Spencer Knight and Dustin Wolf is Kevin's list.
There's already a couple of guys off the board with Kachetkov, Wolf, and Knight.
Well, I don't know if you heard or not, but literally Ian read the first name, and I was like, oh. So, yeah.
Yeah, I did hear that. But that's what I mean. Carter Hart, I actually had him in my B tier, and then I, at the last minute, moved him to the A tier because I remembered that we're factoring potential here. And I was like, okay, well, if I have Kachetkov and Wolf and Knight in here, then Hart still, to me, has a chance of getting into this group.
I can absolutely see that logic.
But to me, Saros is the other goalie who I was like, if you put a tier in between S and A, that's where I'm putting UC Saros.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, do I have any gripes with your list? I think maybe Sergei Bobrovsky.
Well, he's so hot and cold.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And that might be my recency bias here, because he might very well next year have a goals against average over 3.
So here's and we'll get into it, but the thing that stands out for me is obviously, I mean, you heard me when you read it off. Carter Hart. I think Carter Hart. I don't know that I would put him in the A tier right here, right now. But maybe eventually, and it's worth saying, I was the one who initially asked, "Oh, are we including potential?" And my list did not factor in potential at all, so I don't know what happened. I don't know
tried
what
to
I was
factor
thinking.
it in a little bit, but yeah, it's a little bit. But so let's get to Jerk's list.
Yeah. I do want to say as well, I agree with you. I think Bobrovsky in the A tier, I think it's a bit of a reach. I think when he's on his game, I could see it, but when he's off his game, like it's terrifying. And then Darcy Kemper, I like Darcy Kemper. I don't think he's an A goalie personally. Of course, I'm now checking my list to make sure I didn't put him there.
You didn't. I have your list up right now. Hockey Jerk's list. Very stingy on the A tier for Hockey Jerk.
Well, and I would, before you go any further, I would like to point out, for some reason, I was asleep at the wheel when I did this, and I didn't. Jacob Markstrom is not on my list, but I had every intention of putting him on the A list. So I don't know if you want to include him there.
And the funny thing is, when I was putting Markstrom there, I was like, oh, there's a guy that is a no-brainer jerk A-tier goalie. So I will corroborate this and say I know without even speaking with him that he'd have Markstrom on his in his A-tier.
All right. So for those that are listening to audio and cannot see the screen, Hockey Jerk's A-tier goalie list consists of UC Saros, Connor Hellebuck, John Gibson, Thatcher Demko, Ilya Sorokin, and Philip Grubauer.
I was pretty stingy.
You super stingy.
But you know what? I think, like, obviously, we clearly all three of us know what an elite goalie is. We all agree. But I think for this one, for the A tier, which you have classified as, the elite, obviously not superstar upper echelon like Shesterkin and Vasilevsky, but elite. And I think part of the reason why I think I was very stingy with my elite list is because I feel as though that term is thrown out way too much. Like, I can tell you, there's a couple goalies I don't have in my A tier that I've heard people call elite, and I'm like, I'm not so sure about that. And so, I didn't obviously want to I didn't want to jam anyone up and be like, oh, this guy's save percentage was low this year, so he's off the list. But I try to be very, very methodical when it comes to throwing out that elite tag. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, I got a question. So I have a question for you. I'm surprised to see Philip Grubauer there because you mentioned Darcy Kemper on mine. Now I'm just going to turn around and say, don't attack my list, guys.
Yeah.
Darcy,
no, please.
Giving me Darcy Kemper.
No, rip me up if you got to.
No. It's not a rip up. It's. I'm curious why Grubauer, because for me, Grubauer was helped by being on Colorado, and you guys are probably saying the same thing about Kemper, and to me that's fine, but I think a lot higher of Darcy Kemper than I do of Philip Grubauer.
And
so I'm just curious.
And you know what? Considering that Darcy Kemper spent many years with the very, very awful Arizona Coyotes, I see where you're coming from. And maybe if I, after the show, if I decided to make the list again, maybe Darcy Kemper finds his way into my A tier. I think there is maybe some recency bias when it comes to Darcy Kemper. I think his best hockey was on Arizona, and you've not heard many people say that. So
I will not dispute that.
Right, and so I think the recency bias may have, got me a little bit there. But I think with Philip Grubauer, I mean, yes, he was brutal his first year with Seattle. Everybody on Seattle was brutal, unless you're Jared McCann, friend of the show. But I look at, yes, he had the 3 years in Colorado, and he had 3 years in Washington as a regular goalie, and he was over 915 save percentage every year.
Yeah, fair.
And I know Kevin is going to come in and say, well, his highest season he had 40 starts, and I know Kevin. I know Kevin.
I put freaking Kashetkov, who has one regular season NHL game in there. Don't worry about that.
No, but I think this with Philip Grubauer, it was a situation where, I don't know, depending on how you look at it, I ignored the recency bias, where I said, okay, he was crap with the Kraken and we got it. But the 6 years before that, he was incredible, and I mean, he had specifically in the, last season, he had 40 starts, won 30 of them with 7 shutouts. That doesn't mean that he can get by on just one season, but I feel like that was kind of the culmination of a really, really good run. And, to me, you were pretty quizzical when you saw my list, but to me, it was incredibly easy to put him there.
Sure. Okay.
I dig it. All right. Get your knives ready, boys. It's time for my list.
Here we go.
All right.
Where David Riddick? Let's see it.
No. My A tier is Ilya Sorokin, Connor Hellebuck, Darcy Kemper, Jake Ottinger. I agree. There's probably some recency bias there. UC Saros, Frederik Andersen, Robin Lehner, and Carey Price.
Wow. Kevin?
I'm still waiting. There we go. I was waiting for the graphic to come up on the stream here. So, Carey Price. I know you asked this before the show, and you said like if this is a healthy Carey Price, right? Because I didn't know where to put Carey Price, even with that factoring in. So I don't know. I can't really dispute anything. Actually, all I can say is I agree with your list a lot more than Jerk. So there you go. No, I'm just messing around with you. But no, that makes sense. I like that you guys went more stingy on the A tier than I did, because I was fully expecting to have like 3 goalies in my A tier.
So I think on Carey Price, there is a point in time where I think Carey Price would be at the tippy top.
Oh, absolutely.
Those days are gone. But
yes.
I looked at that. I mean, you look at that cup run last year. Like, he's still, when he's healthy, he can still go. To me, when he's healthy, he's absolutely A tier. And I think that's a couple of my guys here. Freddie Andersen, again, health is an issue, but when he's healthy, he can go. Robin Lehner's career numbers are stupid. Go look them up. The dude's elite.
Yeah, see, that was the one that
don't tell Peter DeBoer that.
That was the one that actually stood out to me. And I, you're obviously, I know you're a big fan of Robin Lehner. I too am a big fan of Robin Lehner. But that one, I was pretty confident that he was not an elite goalie. I know he's been very up and down. I understand that. He
career
was
.917.
Right, which is, yeah, like by definition is elite. I see where you're going with that, but I don't know. Maybe it's not being able to play what you would say is a full starter season.
Yeah.
And yes, he's been good, but he's been very up and down in his level of being good. Whereas, and I know, I don't want to make it all about me, but I feel like with Philip Grubauer, it's been pretty consistent. But I see I see where you're going, and I think similar to, if we were gonna make this like a 30 tiered list, I think Lehner would go. I can concede that he would probably go between A and B, and I feel the same way. I feel the same way about Frederik Andersen, and I think those two. Like I said, I personally didn't have him in the A tier, but I don't think you're crazy for putting him there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean the other thing with Robin Lehner too is like it's not like he's always been on like he spent more time on shit teams than on good ones.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right? And to still have a career .917, I mean, that's, to me, special.
Sure.
Definitely. My question to you, because when I saw that Thatcher Demko was on Jerk's A tier, I was like, all right, all 3 of us are going to have him. And you didn't, Ian. So why not Thatcher Demko on the A tier? But Jake Ottinger is, because I feel like they're very similar in their styles and so far their career trajectory.
Demko was a tricky one, and I just feel like I feel like we've seen more of a body of work of Demko, and I think he can absolutely get into the A tier. I just don't think he's there yet.
See, what you just said is how I feel about Jake Ottinger.
That's fair, and I think that's completely fair. And like I said, I think recency bias is a hell of a drug.
Totally. And I actually had Ottinger in my A tier to start, and then I moved him down to, spoiler alert, moved him down to B after kind of really, really thinking about it. And I know, Ryan, if you're listening, put the pitchfork away. It's all good. But, how you how you kind of felt about Demko, that's what I thought about Onger. Like I love Jake Onger. I think he could be. I think he could climb himself up into the make believe tier between S and A, but we're just not there yet.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I do want to point out, though, that Jake Ottinger did give up 9 goals to the San Jose Barracuda in 2 games this season. So
what a pigeon!
That is a thing.
That's a thing that happened.
That
is a thing that happened. All right, so now we are moving on to the B tier, and we are going back to Mr. Kevin Lacey. So here is Kevin Lacey's list. We have.
We're not snaking this, huh?
No, it's just easier this way.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we've got Nedeljkovic, which I can't remember his first name.
Alex,
thank you very much.
One of my most popular tweets with his family.
Wow, this is a big tier.
I won't tweet.
Sorry. Although actually B is my biggest tier too, so maybe I should.
There you go.
We got Pedersen from LA. We've got Carey Price. We got Ilya Samsonov. We've got James Reimer of the San Jose Sharks. Wow. We've got Korpisalo from Columbus. We have Kakko Kakinen in the B tier. Mackenzie Blackwood, Philip Grubauer, Semyon Varlamov. I am not going to say Luukkonen's name because it's weird.
Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen.
Right, yes, thank you. We have Antti Ratina from Carolina. We have Cam Talbot. We have Merzlikins. Ilya Sorokin in the B tier? What is the matter?
Hater.
I told you guys, I'm not there yet. Okay. But if he has one more year like he did this year, then absolutely.
That's fair. We have Jeremy Swayman. We have Jordan Binnington. We have Logan Thompson. We have Pavel Francouz. I don't know how you say that.
Francouz.
Thank you. We have Robin Lehner and Tristan Jarry. Jerk.
So I would say about half of your list, I'm like, yeah, right on, Kevin. And the other half, I'm like, what are you thinking? and really the big example for me, and Ian mentioned it as well, Ilya Sorokin, I think we got into that pretty well, where for Ian and I, he was very close to breaking into the S tier. So I guess to see him on the B tier is a shock to the system, at least for me.
I think for me, it's going to be my guys are pretty much one tier ahead of you.
Sure.
Of both of you.
And
I think that's how it's going to end up being.
And to your point, Ilya Sorokin, the body of work is not very large. It's good, but in terms of his North American play, it's not a very big body. So I don't think this will happen, but I could see a situation where maybe he gets into that third year and he slows down, especially as he takes more games from Varlamov. I could see it. But but again, to your point, there are some others where I look and I'm like, I'm down with the cause. Like I see Kaapo Kähkönen you have in your B tier. Spoiler alert, I've got him in mine as well. And Jeremy's, shit, dude. I love Jeremy Swayman. And I got Jeremy Swayman in my B tier, so there's half of this list where I'm like, Kevin, I don't know what you're talking about, but that's not a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like I think I dig it. I dig that like we all kind of look at it differently,
Here, my B tier is these guys are starters in the NHL.
Sure.
They're not great, amazing, and they're not meh. Why, like 1B kind of guys. Like that's what this tier is for me. Even though the definition is a little bit better than that. Talking about Antti Raanta being broken glass the last couple of shows that we've had. I think Antti Raanta is a great goalie when he actually plays. But that's.
Well, that's what I had. That's why I had Freddie Anderson in the A tier, because if Freddie Anderson's healthy, he's one of the best goalies in the league.
Right.
When he's healthy.
Right. And I think there's
Go ahead.
No, I was going to make a point, but now I'm thinking about it and I don't know.
Well, I was going to say the 3 guys was expecting you guys to question were Blackwood, Korpisalo, and Samsonov. And Samsonov, I think, has really underwhelmed.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so I could see him being, I think he could be lower on your guys' tiers for sure. Because, so I have him ranked above Vitek Vanacek, despite the fact, this was the only homework I did on this, as far as like looking up stats and stuff like that. Vitek Vanacek, ever since he came into the NHL, has had better stats every season than Ilya Samsonov. But why do I have Ilya Samsonov? Because I still think he can be that number one tried and true goalie. That's what he was bred to be. And I don't know if he can be in Washington right now, because Washington's kind of on the downturn. He might need a scenery change, because he's already, he's been suspended for off-ice activity by the team, not by the league, in the past. And, he just might need a culture change. But I still think he has the potential to be right here in this tier with these goalies, even though so far his NHL career certainly has not been that. Korpisalo would be another guy where, he had an 870 something save percentage last year. It was god-awful, but he also had a major hip injury that he was trying to play through. And I still remember his goaltending performance in the bubble.
Yeah.
And I was never a big Jonas Korpisalo fan up until then. And I went, oh, wow, this guy has the tools. He just needs to put it together. This might be the last time you ever see me rank him this high, because we'll see what happens coming off the hip surgery. But for right now, I still think that, I thought Edmonton should have just taken a flyer on him and just to see what happens, for example.
Yeah, I think specifically with what you were saying, like having, Samsonov in there and having Sorokin in there as well. I know I said earlier that, my idea of including potential kind of went out the window as soon as I started. I was the same way as you, where it's like, okay, B tier, to me, you're a starting goalie, but you're really not all that impressive. And that, you're not a upper echelon goalie. But then as I was going through it, I would say the B tier is probably the only tier where I really put potential into factor in. And I don't know, Ian, if you want to throw up my graphic.
Let's look at your list.
All right.
But there were a couple where I think right now they are your, for lack of a better term, they are your cookie cutter starter goalie. But I think they have room to grow. I look at, on my list, I look at.
I'm going to bring your list up in a second. I do have one.
Cool.
I have one thing where I kind of raised an eyebrow here, and maybe it's because I didn't watch enough Columbus games. But Merzlikins in the B tier.
Yeah. I like Merzlikins. I think he's another one that he can be right in here. But he'd probably be one of my beer my beer minus goalies. So
all right, fair enough. Okay, I'm gonna bring up Dirk's list.
Yeah, I just I thought, like I said, B was the one where I really gave the potential some thought,
except for Jake Ottinger, apparently.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, that's just me being an idiot. But
my list, by the way, is in alphabetical order by first name. It's definitely not by in order of this is my highest B, this is my lowest B, anything like that. So.
So of course, Puck Guy's got to taunt me with that photo. So. I kind of looked at this as like I said, the B tier was, you're my starter goalie, but you're not in a league of your own. You're just an NHL starter, similar to what Kevin was saying. But I also gave the potential a lot of thought, and that's why you see, Jake Ottinger, Jeremy Swayman, Spencer Knight, Capo Kakinen, where it's these guys right here, right now, they are NHL starting goalies by the definition that Kevin mentioned and that I mentioned, but sort of have that room to grow. And I realize on this list it doesn't communicate that, but that's kind of how I looked at it, where it is I think they will be better goalies than most of the goalies I have in this list, and in some cases they are better goalies, but they're not they're not quite there yet, if that makes sense.
Fair enough. I have an immediate question after this. I'm going to read off Dirk's list.
Sure.
Marc-Andre Fleury, Jake Ottinger, Darcy Kemper, Cam Talbot, Merzlikins, Robin Leonard, Jeremy Swayman, Spencer Knight, Kakko Kakkonen, Varlamov, Tristan Jarry, Sergei Bobrovsky, Frederick Anderson, Jack Campbell, Jonathan Quick, Ilya Samsonov, Cal Peterson, yeah?
Yep.
Cal Peterson.
Yeah, Cal Peterson. Jordan Binnington and Carter Hart. Where the hell is James Reimer?
Just wait, buddy.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Wow.
That's cold.
Wow.
Hey, you know what? I don't apologize.
The bakery.
So this one, and I know there's definitely I'll be honest, I'm raising my eyebrows a little bit at my own list. But for example, so Jonathan Quick here. Mm-hmm. I think I'm the only one to have Jonathan Quick in the B tier, and I think that has a lot to do. You know, we talked about revisionist history. I think there's a lot of revisionist history there on my part. I can admit that, but I feel personally as though even though yes, he's obviously his stats, his play has dwindled the last 4 or 5, 6 years maybe. Mm-hmm. I still think that he's a guy where when it matters most, like he's a gamer, you know. Like he'll show up and he can play. And yeah, it's gone against him more than it's gone for him recently, but I still think that he has that ability to be a difference maker, but he's not an elite goalie, he's not a superstar goalie. He's kind of as Kevin was saying, he's in the upper tier, you know, of the B category, so to speak. And I think there's I don't know, I'll be honest, there's a couple of these where I'm kind of rethinking it a little bit, but you know what? I'm going to stick with what I put. And, you know, like I said, for me, the B tier was kind of almost like a mix, if that makes sense, where you had some guys who, yes, they were starting goalies. We know they're starters. They will always be starters, combined with guys who are starters, but they got another gear to hit. Like I said, Swayman, Kakkonen, Knight, even Carter Hart to a lesser extent. I know Carter Hart has had some good experience, but you know, he's outside of that first, his first little run in Philadelphia, you know, when he was grudgingly called up, he's been very average since then, I felt. And so we'll see. I still think he can be an elite goalie, but I wouldn't say he is right now.
I'm going to pull us out of this for a second just because I have to hit up a super chat here.
Sure.
Okay. Skylar hitting up the $2 super chat. Thank you, Skylar. And he is saying, what's going on? Why isn't it showing up? I don't know what happened. It's just broken. I don't know why it's not working. Anyway, let me see if I can make this work. There we go. Skylar with $2 super chat. Pittsburgh fine. Quick before Reimer, hockey jerk.
Look at the stats.
Ooh.
How many years of his career has, and we'll get into it. We haven't even seen Ian's B list yet, but how many years of Reimer's career has he been a starter?
That's fair.
That's true. It hasn't. It's only been this past year and a half or so.
I was gonna say,
Toronto would have been before that.
Yeah, by definition this year because he played more than 50% of the games, but before that it was 2017-18 and. You know, the year before that, but he's been in the NHL for quick count here 13 years, and he's been a quote-unquote starter 3 times, according to the math. And he's been good, but he's also been brutal.
Skylar says, well played. I have a hard time arguing with that. Quick, before we continue, we need to do
I was going to say,
challenge.
I was going to wait till after your B list before we did that.
Oh, it's fine. I mean, okay. Get your knives ready. It's fine. Let's go.
So for those of you listening here, you obviously know that the Avalanche and Lightning are about to begin overtime in Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final. We are watching this as we record this, and we're going to get a little Bucci overtime challenge going here. Who you guys got?
I don't want to do the same as Dirk, but I think if Colorado pulls this out, I think Landeskog's probably pulling away with the Conn Smythe, so I'm going to go with Landeskog. On the Lightning side, I will go with, I don't know, I'm going to be lazy and go Stamkos.
Stamkos, nice. Jerk.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think really all playoffs, and it kind of under the radar just because of McKinnon, Makar, all that kind of stuff. But Landeskog has had his fingerprints all over everything.
Heck yeah.
And I think he will continue to do that. I think Landeskog for Colorado, and I know, everybody hates him, and it's kind of the hipster thing to like him. So I guess I'm a hipster, but I'm feeling Corey Perry. Like ever since he left Anaheim, I've been quite fond of Corey Perry, and I think he's going to do it again tonight.
There you go.
I like that there was a commercial for $100,000 pyramid right now while we're doing these pyramids. But quickly getting my picks in, I went off the board and off the rails with mine tonight. For Tampa Bay, I've got Alex Killorn scoring his first goal of the playoffs.
Ooh,
I
nice.
feel like tonight's the night.
That would be huge.
My Colorado pick, Eric Johnson. Remember him?
Wow.
Remember he used to be a top pick?
Muffin from the point off a shin pad, yeah.
I don't know about a muffin, but yeah, I'm picturing one of those like shot blocks and comes out to the point, and then Johnson just shoots it and catches everyone off guard, kind of thing. So,
all right,
there you go.
So my B tier, guys, get your knives ready. Marc-Andre Fleury, Sergei Bobrovsky, Thatcher Demko, Campbell, Olmark, Swayman, Forsberg, Knight, Smith, Varlamov, Tristan Jarry, James Reimer, Cam Talbot, Merzlikins, Husso, Quick, Gibson, Grubauer, Hart. Maybe I do hate goalies after all.
Hey, wait a minute. You can't call me out on Merzlikins and then you got him on your list.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I don't know. But I'll be honest. So our lists are pretty different, Ian. But there's not really anything here where I'm like crying bloody murder. You know what I mean?
No,
maybe Grubauer and Gibson that low. That's the one thing where I might, want to throw some tomatoes at you. But other than that, I mean, I don't really see so much of an issue with your list. I think it's pretty solid.
I really like John Gibson, right? But there are goalies where I said, at one point in time they would be a tier above, and I just wonder if that's John Gibson now.
It's possible, and we're probably not going to know until he plays for a better team.
Yeah. And Carter Hart, a guy that I absolutely love. And given the crap that they call defense in Philly, could he be higher? I still think Carter Hart again potentially could be elite, but he just hasn't been.
Yeah, Carter Hart is where he probably should be on my list. But again, I have everything a tier above. I like where you did put Carter Hart because at one time he was supposed to be the next Broder, maybe not that high, but supposed to be the next great goalie for Canada. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the next, elite superstar, amazing first ballot Hall of Fame type goalie or whatever. Maybe that's too much pressure. And also the fact that Philadelphia's defense, all those prospects that just never panned out, and they haven't been able to figure anything out in Philadelphia. And that's where I gave Carter Hart the benefit of the doubt. But I definitely can understand him being on your guys' B tier there for sure.
I kind of for Gibson, it's kind of the same logic I used for Quick, right? Quick was elite at one point. Is he elite anymore? Yeah. I don't think so.
I'm surprised that you put Mike Smith on here, though, because I never really found you to be a big Mike Smith fan.
He's a starter.
Okay.
He's an NHL starting goalie.
I think so.
Yeah. I think the points you make about Quick and Gibson, I think, are fair points, but difference being Jonathan Quick is sort of on a downward trajectory just because of age and experience and all that kind of stuff, whereas similar to Carter Hart, I think Gibson has had to play behind a pretty brutal team. I would go out on a limb, I don't think very far, and I would say that Anaheim is a better team than Philadelphia. But that doesn't change the fact that, that farm of a blue line that Anaheim has been, that we talked about last show, it's severely dwindled. And I think Gibson has suffered from that. And that's not to say that he needs a good defense in front of him, but he needs players, forwards and defensemen, who aren't going to just allow him to be shelled.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't like Tristan Jarry either, but I still acknowledge he's a starter.
Right.
Cam Talbot. I don't like Cam Talbot. But he's a starter. Right?
Sure.
I don't know. I feel like that's maybe I think I may have punished a few guys for maybe not living up to potential. I think Demko so far hasn't completely lived up to, I think, again, kind of like Carter Hart, right? Where he came in with all these lofty expectations and so far hasn't like super lived up to them. I think he was better at the end of last season, but I don't know. I just need to see another full good season from Thatcher Demko before I can start inching him up that tier list, I think.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, yeah, I got no argument against that.
Anything else on my list?
No. Skylar Greenberg in his Bucci OT challenge said Nathan McKinnon or Victor Hedman. Marty said Mikko Rantanen or Anthony Cirelli. Now, Anthony Cirelli got injured in the game, and it looked like he broke his arm. But
he's back.
As far as I'm aware, he played the third period.
He did. Cirelli's back. Yep.
Oh man.
Yeah.
They just put some duct tape on it.
But it looked bad.
I think I saw on Twitter right when it happened. Somebody on Twitter said that it looked like a skate cut his arm.
Oof.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, that was just an initial reaction. I don't know.
The replay though showed the skate missed his arm. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, so
let's move into the C tier. Chris Tierney
tier. All right,
paging Drew Weber.
Here is Kevin Lacey's C tier.
Oh dear.
Aiden Hill, Anton Forsberg, Brian Elliott. What is Primo's first name? I should just Caden. Thank you. Oh my god, I'm like so losing
I almost said Mason.
Like,
I was gonna say Keith. That's not right.
Yeah, well, Wayne.
Comrie, Gustafson, Halak, Quick, Lankinen, Murray, Dawes, Skinner, Husso, Georgiev, Kudobin, DeSmith, Vladar, Calgreen, Campbell. Oh my god. Bernier, Vilmelka, Dostal, Mike Smith, Peter Mrazek, Tomas Greiss, and Vanacek. Campbell?
These were all of my goalies that I went, I could see them getting some starts. It's like the maybe for a season they start kind of thing, but long term, not options. And yes, I have Jack Campbell in here. I think Jack Campbell is a pretty great person. I think he's a very, very mediocre goalie. And I think that he was hugely benefited by playing on Toronto, who always had the puck. You're a pretty good team when you've got Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and William Nylander and John Tavares carrying the puck most of the game. But what happens when you're in the defensive zone? Toronto's defense isn't that bad. But I do think Jack Campbell can play a lot better. And this is not just because he sucked in March. I've just never been a big Jack Campbell guy. If he was the goalie that the Toronto media plays him out to be, then I think he would have been starting in the NHL 4 years ago instead of playing for the Ontario Reign.
That's a pretty solid analysis. I think I obviously had Jack Campbell higher, but I think, you make a good point.
Argument.
Yeah, honestly, because as you said, he was supposed to be the next big thing, coming out 11th overall a few years back. More than a few years back. Jesus.
Yeah.
And it did take him a long time to get there. He had to rip through the Dallas organization, and the only thing that I would make a counter to what you said is he played, the two quote unquote full seasons he played in LA. I thought he played well. And so sure. I think if I were to make a counter argument to what you're trying to say, I would say, when he played for the LA Kings, he did play good hockey. I mean, it's obviously why Toronto identified him as an option to be their starter.
And a former Greyhound, it has nothing to do with what he did in LA.
and I do also agree, Kevin. I think, when your team keeps the puck away from you for most of the game, it's easy to play well. But I thought, with the exception of March and the playoffs, I thought when Jack Campbell was tested, I thought he held up really well. And I thought there was a stretch there where he was, maybe not a legitimate contender for the Vezina, but I think in the Vezina conversation.
Yeah. Now, go ahead.
I was going to say, I wonder if, Jack Campbell's a guy to me where I wonder if he's this generation's Tim Thomas.
I can see that.
right?
But he
just
needs to go to Finland for a couple of years.
But you know what I
first.
mean? Like a guy who comes on like later than you would expect in his career.
Right.
You know, a guy with like
Yeah, Tim Thomas originally came in as a prospect who was thought to be at least a backup goalie in the NHL.
Mhm.
And then that didn't work out at all until he was 31 years old.
Yeah. I just
So-
wonder if he's this generation's Tim Thomas, a guy who's just gonna come on late after, you know, not really having anything expected of him or having expectations of him kind of just dashed compared to when he came into the league.
Career 920 for Tim Thomas
Mhm.
in the NHL.
Yeah. No, I like that take on that. To kind of critique my own list, I've got like Brian Elliott here.
Yeah.
Not Philip Gustafson. Who was the other one here? There were a couple other guys.
Not
but
Jonas
Jonathan
Gustafson,
Bernier.
I hope not.
Definitely not Jonas Gustafson. Jonathan Bernier, you know, long in the tooth goalies right now. Hudobin is another one there. I think I put them in this tier for the sake of they can still back up, and the bulk of their careers, like looking at their career longevity. I think that's why I ended up here. I would not be surprised if I see none of those three goalies on your lists, for example.
So here's
Matt Murray, that's the other one.
And here's the thing, and Kevin, how I'm interpreting the situation, it seems to me like Kevin included every goalie who played an NHL game this year, which
pretty much,
which is fine. I mean, whatever. You know, I think part of the reason why your list seems like such a stark contrast to mine is because I didn't. I kept it to the, what was it, 25 games? And
25 games.
So
you're right.
It does make the list shake out a bit differently, but I'll be honest with you, Kevin, looking at what you did here, like if I remove the names that I didn't even rate, like our lists are pretty identical.
Yeah, because I have like Eric Chalgren in here, Lucas Stoll, and stuff like that.
Right.
So, yeah. But now you see why I created a D tier,
and
because look how big my C tier is.
And I will say I'm not gonna reveal who it is yet, but there is one person I have in my F tier that one of you has already. Yeah.
Ooh.
And so I'm kind of like, oh man, but but you know what? I stand by what I said. So
okay.
All right. Well, let's get to Jerk's C tier. Hockey Jerk C tier: Allmark, Forsberg, Nedeljkovic. Wow. Maybe that's where I have him too. This is one of these things where I'm going to say what, and then I'm going to have him there too. You want Craig Anderson, Antti Ranta, Vamelka. Antti Ranta, eh? Wow. All right. Vamelka, DeSmith, Jake Allen, Blackwood, Husso, Vanacek, Reimer.
There it is.
I had to swallow there for a second. Smith, Georgiev, Stolars, Grice, Dreger, and Lankinen.
So where do you want to start?
I mean, I can't argue. Like I can't really argue here. Like I think your case for Reimer, I concede. Like a little bit of recency bias on my part, probably.
I could see and I'm pretty happy with my list. The one where I could see some outcry, and you kind of alluded to it already, was with Nedeljkovic.
Yeah, Husso too, I think a little bit.
I see Husso, I don't agree with on that. I mean, I know he was pretty well touted back in his draft year, and rightfully so. I mean, he played very well in Finland, but I think you want to talk about recency bias. I mean, I feel like Ville Husso is the poster for recency bias. I mean,
Ville Husso is literally the successor to Jordan Binnington in almost every way, other than the cup win.
Right, and
if you look at his stats and everything,
and part of the reason why I have him in C, obviously, I think he is an NHL backup. I think that's a safe thing to say at this point.
Yeah.
But you look prior to this year, I mean, you have to go back to when he was in Finland to find a time where he was impressive for long stretches, and that's not to say that he wasn't impressive elsewhere. I mean, obviously, decent stats with Chicago and San Antonio in the AHL, but
Yeah,
He's
like I said, I feel like I'm
definitely-
going to be surprised, and then I'm going to like bring up my list and be like, I'm an idiot.
And I think with Nedeljkovic is almost the same thing. Where yes, Nedeljkovic has put up good stats, and I understand that, but it was a long road of
Yeah.
kind of just meh on his part. And I know he's put up good stats. I mean, kind of brutal with the Red Wings, but again, even going back, he had that one good year with Carolina, 932 save percentage, very good. But before that, when he did appear in the NHL, he was just okay, and in the AHL, he was an average goalie.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
And I know, I don't know, a lot of people were really high on Chris Driedger. I think he's a backup. People high on James Reimer, same thing, backup. I do kind of pour one out for Georgiev. If you asked me to do this maybe 2 years ago, he would have been much higher, but
I remember we had the Shesterkin versus Georgiev conversation.
God, I was looking back through texts with Ryan going back 2.5 years ago, and same things, talking about Georgiev and Shesterkin as if they were similar goalies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, dude, you're a moron. Like, like you're not even close.
Yeah, I like that you put Kevin Lankinen
Thank
on
you.
here, and not just because he has a cool first name, but I think that he, at least internationally, has proven himself to be a very capable goalie.
Sure.
And the reason why you don't hear more about him is because he plays on Sad Sack Chicago.
Well, not only
I think I don't know if he's long for the NHL because of that. I mean, he's the type of goalie who could get lured in by a big contract from the KHL, for example.
Sure.
But I like where you rated him right now, because I don't think he gets enough credit for the type of goalie that he is.
I'm not going to
right,
flip all the
and
screen. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
and Kevin, you're right. He was a very, very good goalie in Finland. I mean, you can understand why an NHL team would be interested in bringing him over, but same kind of thing where it's like, that's great what you've done, in the Finnish Elite League, but what are you going to do here? And in the AHL he's been very average, in the NHL he's been very average, and that's fine. Like, if you're an average goalie, you can make money and have a career, but and I think I feel like it's like I'm explaining my C tier, you know what I mean? But it's like, but I feel like Kevin, you just said capable, like you described him as capable, and I feel like, yeah, okay, if you're capable, you're probably a backup.
That's what C stands for, capable.
Right.
Just Skylar in the chat saying that Carolina's always made their goalies look better than they are. Nedeljkovic is no different from Ranta, James Reimer, and the original Carolina goalie Cam Ward that bitch, which I always like a Cam Ward.
That's fair.
I always.
It's fair.
Yeah, I mean, a Cam Ward that bitch reference. I mean, how can you go wrong?
Yeah,
All
that's
right,
an old one.
Knives Out, bitches.
Oh no.
Okay.
C tier. Capo Kakinen, Vanacek,
Bro.
Peterson, Anderson,
Wow.
Georgiev, Vamelka, Martin Jones, DeSmith, Grice, Driedger, Lankinen, Samsonov. I have Nedeljkovic on my list. Yeah, I'm an idiot. Binnington, Ranta, Wedgwood, Stolars, Hill, Dawes, Allen, Blackwood.
I'm upset that you have Kakinen on this list.
Not enough of a. He hasn't done anything yet.
Sure.
He hasn't done, and if you ask me tomorrow if I am okay if James Reimer's gone and Capo Kakinen's a starter, I am not.
Wow.
Yeah, I am not.
Wow. Okay, that puts me in the minority. Then I am. I think the Sharks should do that.
I'm not ready. Like, I really I really like Capo Kakinen, and I think he has a lot of potential. But like, I'm just after. I have Martin Jones scars, right? And I have Martin Jones in the same tier.
And yet he's in your C tier.
Okay, but here's the thing. Let me explain that, all right? Because I know a lot of people probably weren't expecting Martin Jones to be a name to pop up on that list.
I was not. I almost did myself, but I was not expecting this.
Martin Jones actually had a pretty decent season in the goalie graveyard / defenseless void that is Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Like, I think for a guy who... Like, is he going to get another $2 million contract? I don't know. But did he show that he can still play? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he can still back up in this league. I don't think he's a
I
starter.
think
Can he?
I think the reason why there's all the Martin Jones hate here is just because it's San Jose.
The
Like,
scars,
I don't think
man.
that hate
I have scars. I have Martin Jones scars on my
I
soul.
don't think that hate carries across the league, you know? So I think it's fine putting him here. I'm surprised, but I think it's fine.
I don't know. I feel like after like the season he had in Philadelphia, I mean, like, look at again. Like, I think he finished with like what a 900.
Yep.
So I mean, like, not great, but getting a 900 out of your backup goalie, it's not terrible either.
Out of your backup goalie who was complete dog shit the previous 3 years.
Correct. Like, I think for given everything that, like, the deck was completely. Now, don't get me wrong. I still have long flowing hair right now. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think given the fact that I didn't think like he would ever play in the NHL again, I think he earned himself another contract in the NHL last year. I think someone is probably going to take a flyer on him as a 1B, as a backup.
Arizona.
Well, I mean, who knows what New Jersey does with their goalie situation with Blackwood. I mean, like, Blackwood I put in my A tier, but I wouldn't see him. I wouldn't complain about him being dropped at all because it's all between the ears with him.
Yeah.
And so if New Jersey moved on and decides to go with Nico Dawes, which I think would be too much of a stretch, but if they did something drastic like that, I could see Martin Jones being a backup for New Jersey next year.
Yeah, Blackwood was a guy I kind of struggled with. The numbers just aren't there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, numbers wise, I don't think he's there. And like that, I think that's kind of similar for Kaapo Kakkonen. Just like there's not enough body of work there. Like, I think the one thing that I'll come back to this, and because there is something that I do want to kind of close on. So we'll hold that thought. But other than that, yeah, I mean, like, again, I think Antti Raanta is not healthy enough to be like. I think Antti Raanta can be really, really good when he's healthy. But the problem is he's worse than Freddie Anderson. Like, he's just never healthy.
Right.
Not like, you couldn't go into the season relying on Antti Raanta to be your 1A. Even in a pontoon. Like, you can't rely on him to be your 1A.
No way. Not at all.
Any other comments? You know, another guy who I like here, who I really like on this list, but I think is unfortunately in Arizona, Vejmelka. I like aspects of his game. Yeah, and I feel bad that he's on Arizona because I think he's a gamer goalie.
He's a gamer.
We all put him in our I said beer team again. Our C team, and I think we all are in agreement about his potential to move up in these rankings here in the next couple of years. I wanted to ask you about Jordan Binnington, though. That one surprised me a little bit. I mean, granted, he's not the cup-winning goalie, flash in the pan goalie that he was a couple of years ago. But you only think he's a backup, eh?
I think, and this is where, like, me and Jerk kind of had to go around, right? Like, I think that if I look at the team he's on, and maybe that's why I ranked him the way I did, I think Husso's the better goalie. Okay. So, by default, that makes him the B.
There you go.
I think Colorado just scored. I thought Vasilevsky saved it, but if not, I think that's a Nazem Kadri goal.
Oh,
wow. Broken thumb, no problem.
Yeah, he made a great deke in close, but I thought Vasilevsky saved that.
Oh, Game over. Well,
Tampa Bay Lightning.
The angry Canadian
that's in
bracket.
The net. That's in the net for sure.
The angry Canadian bracket's one game away.
The controversy was that it got stuck in the back of the net behind the crossbar, and so no one knew where the puck was. Okay, so yeah, Colorado wins.
I think, and I think Kevin will agree with me here. I think if we do this again in a year, I think Samsonov could be a tier up, assuming he's moved to another team or is just given the reins as the starter.
Yeah, Samsonov is a guy to me, and I'm not really high on Vanacek either, which is weird because like Washington was a playoff team, and I'm like, fuck your goaltending.
Yeah.
But I feel like again there's some goalies where there's just not enough of a sample size for me to say, okay, this is what they are.
Sure.
Right. All right. So let's move into the D/F tier.
The D tier is my C- tier.
All right.
So this can just be a quick blip on the screen.
Yeah, I got it up here. So the D tier: Kevin Lacey's D tier, Stolars, Holtby, Dreger, Ingram, Rittich, Jake Allen, Martin Jones, and Wedgwood. See, and in a D tier, I don't have an issue with Jake Allen or Martin Jones being here. Like, I think especially Martin Jones, like Jake Allen can die in a fire, but
wow,
Martin Jones, okay, that's harsh, but Martin Jones, like I can agree D tier.
I just like the graphic of Braden Holtby looking like oh,
I'm on the D tier.
Fuck. Dude, D tier for dud. Nice one puck guy.
Which is crazy because like there's like even in the chat, like, and on Twitter, it's like everyone's like, oh, Braden Holtby should go to Edmonton. Like, you want Braden fucking Holtby?
I saw
over Mike Smith. I don't even know if I would go. That's a bridge too far even for me.
I saw someone in a different chat mention that Holtby should be Edmonton's goalie next year, and I'm thinking even the year that Washington won the cup, Holtby had a really bad regular season and then got hot in the playoff, found his stride again in the playoffs, but then hasn't been the same goalie ever since. So that's why I got him here.
It's fair. All right, so getting into the Kevin AC with the what are you doing in the NHL list? Oh, this hurts my soul. Aaron Dell.
Oh, man. That hurt
you're
me.
not wrong,
hey,
but it hurts.
Too.
It hurts my soul. But you're not wrong.
Me too, because all those years where we talked about the Barracuda and how Aaron Dell was a savior and everything like that. Like, it hurt me.
I forgot he existed.
That hurts my soul. Oh man, Aaron Dell, Colin Delia, Dustin Toharski, Gillies, Brossois, Domingue, Subban, Montembeault, and
Spencer Martin.
Yeah, there we go.
How dare you put Louis Domingue on this list?
I have never been, and this dates back to Pucknology Writers Room when Louis Domingue tried to hold out from Arizona after half a year as their goalie. Saying, I'm going to go to Europe if you don't give me... Go to Europe. You're not probably going to even start over there either. Like, I think nothing of Louis Domingue, and it showed for Pittsburgh there in the playoffs. I don't think anything of Laurent Brossois either. John Gillies it's kind of like Aaron Dell. I like John Gillies, but NHL goalie, not so much. Tokarski and his giant chest protector, kind of the same thing. Spencer Martin was the one, though. Vancouver gave him a one-way contract which starts next season. So I'm going to either eat crow or look super smart on this one.
It's funny how a little bit of stock can drop on guys, though. Like, has anyone's stock dropped further than Malcolm Subban's?
No, I'll be honest with you. And I even when he was on Boston, I'm like, this guy sucks. Like, I was never a fan of Malcolm.
You were not the only one. I was in the camp of, I think he's pretty good, but he had an injury when he was playing for Providence, and he just never recovered and never had any consistency even before that. So,
well, not only that, but if I remember correctly, I believe in Malcolm Subban's first NHL start, he stepped on a puck and ate it. But different story.
All right, let's move on to the F tier for Mr. Hockey Jerk. Mikko Koskinen, Scott Wedgwood, Martin Jones, Dustin Tokarski, Nico Dawes, Montembeault, and Aaron Dell. Oh, that hurts my soul.
Did I really rank Aaron Dell?
You do. You have Aaron Dell on the F tier.
I forgot he was in the league, and apparently you forgot he was on your list too.
Yeah, you know what? I did not rank Aaron Dell, so I think there's some collusion here.
Uh-oh. Guys,
but that's okay. That's probably accurate, so it's fine.
It's fair. It hurts my soul, but it's fair. Like, Aaron Dell has no business being in the NHL at this point.
And here's the thing. And you know what? And a lot of this is like, there are a handful of these guys. Wedgwood comes to mind, and that's really it. Where it's like, not why are you here? You're the worst goalie ever, but it's just like you're barely a backup. You know what I mean? And maybe the play there is to create a D tier like Kevin did, but I don't know. This was just kind of like you're not really impressive to me. And I know you guys both had Dawes in the C tier. I clearly have him in the F tier. And
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, and so full disclosure, obviously I think it's fair to say I probably have not watched Nico Dawes as much as you guys have, but from what I can tell, and the thing that I always say is my mark of a good goalie is, have you played well consistently league to league everywhere you've been?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not Dawes. It's actually quite the opposite. Like, he had a good year in Guelph, and he had a good year with Utica this year. Aside from that, though, like, limited NHL experience has been not that impressive. Not really that impressive in Germany. Wasn't really that impressive in Guelph until his last year there. And I understand a decent record in 18-19 with Guelph, but how do you have a winning record with a sub 900 save percentage?
Here's my counter to that.
Sure.
Nico Dawes was 20 years old when this season began.
Fair.
Yeah, it's so rare that you get guys that are like 20 years old playing NHL games.
So, like, I think Nico Dawes having an unspectacular, like, when Nico Dawes was playing for the Devils this season, I was like, holy cow, what happened? Like, I did not realize that Bernier had been out for the year and Blackwood was out for the year. And so Nico Dawes got put into a situation kind of like, I don't want to say Mirko Mueller, but I guess that's the easiest example, where it's like, oh, don't rot this prospect here. He is not ready for prime time, and the Devils decided to do it anyway. And I think that's where those stats came from.
Amazing.
So,
and you know what? When you explain it like that, I see where you're coming from.
yeah.
All right. My F tier is really, really short. I have Mikko Koskinen, Dustin Tokarski, and Montembeault.
I'm surprised you don't have Jones in here.
Again, I the thing with Jones is, like, I think Jones played well enough last year on a shit defensively Flyers team to show that he can still hang in the NHL, not as a starter, but as a backup. But, like, the guys here, I mean, Mikko Koskinen, he's gone anyway, so I think that was just an easy punch.
I didn't even rank Koskinen for that reason.
That was an easy punch, but
he would have been
Dustin Tokarski, sure. Like, I have no idea. Like, that was my Darren Hell moment. Like, this guy's still in the fucking league? Are you kidding me? Like, I don't know how, like, no team can find a backup better than Dustin Tokarski. And, like, Sean Montembeault, like, oh man, dude's awful, but, like, you have to feel for him, because, like, Jake Allen goes down and he just got absolutely thrown to the wolves in Montreal. So maybe this isn't fair, but I don't, like, the dude did not look like an AHL goalie on some nights on that team.
The only thing I remember, and I agree with you. Like, every time that Dustin Tokarski gets a contract, I'm surprised. But the thing that always comes to mind for me with him, and yes, he's obviously, you look at the stats, he's a decent AHL goalie. Mm-hmm. The thing that comes to mind for me is 2014 in the playoffs with Montreal. Like, he was on another level.
Yes.
But then you take a step back and say, okay, 2014, a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of brings my question back around. Is like, how does this guy keep getting contracts?
Right. Like, I don't know how he's still in the league.
Yeah. Like, if he's your AHL goalie, like, it's fine. You can deal with it. But, like, if you have to call him up, say a prayer.
Say a prayer indeed. All right. So I'm going to bring us back.
You asked why Dustin Tokarski is still in the NHL, because Buffalo's other goalies were Aaron Dell and Michael Hauser.
Fair. God damn, that's terrible.
And Craig Anderson.
That's pretty bad.
And Craig Anderson. I have all the time. You know what? I have all the time.
I love Craig Anderson. But he retired now, right?
But I don't think so. I honestly think he's coming back.
Oh,
I think he wants to come
back. He was retiring.
I think he wants.
Is he in a race with Mike Smith to see who can goaltend the longest?
You know what? You know what's funny is he was like, he's one of those guys, Craig Anderson, and I don't have him on my ranking list, but every time you think that, like, this is it for him, he finds another level.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, I don't know how many rabbits he's got left in his hat, but I feel like he's already played longer than we all expected him to.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like after when Ottawa went to the East Final and his wife was obviously diagnosed, I thought that was it.
Yeah.
And he just kept going.
Yeah. Craig Anderson is
and he's a hell of a guy
man.
too. Hell of a guy.
Yeah, that's like I have all the time in the world for Craig Anderson. So I think the one thing that I took from this, from doing it, that I didn't expect, I think the one thing I expected was that my premise going into this was there aren't as many elite goalies as people think there are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, looking at all of this, I think that bears out to be true. But the thing that I didn't expect was just how few games so many NHL goalies have played. Like, there's so many guys that are below that 100 game mark where you figure out where the hell they're, where you can kind of get an idea of where the hell they actually are. Because I think first 100 games, like, you can't really, like, it's easy to get excited about a guy, but it's what do you do after that first 100 games that really shows what you're going to be. So I think that was the thing that I think surprised me the most, is just how I didn't realize how much we're on this, like, just wave of completely new blood. That was my takeaway from it. Like, I didn't realize how much new blood was actually in the league. It's not that there's not that many elite goalies. It's just that half the, like, a big number of the goalies on that list haven't even played 100 games yet. Or just over.
Look at the trends, the draft trends, though. Like, it's very rare to see a goalie drafted in the first round right now, because teams are, I guess, too scared to draft a goalie too early, where you get into a Rick DiPietro situation or something along those lines, or Jack Campbell. But so I think that teams are very quick on the gun to replace their goalies, and so that's why you see our B, C, and my D tiers really clogged up with a lot of names, and I think all three of us had most of our young goalies ranked in the B, or for me the A tier, because they haven't proven themselves to be C-level goalies yet. So I think you're spot on about how there really aren't very many supreme goalies whatsoever. And the point that I want to make out of it is, let's not be so harsh to criticize the goalies in this league, because the one thing that really irks me just in general, we see it on television broadcasts all the time. That's a bad goal to give up. That's a terrible. He's got to stop that. He's gonna want that back.
I feel very attacked
the goalies
right now.
are all gonna want them back.
I said I feel very attacked right now.
I was gonna say, like 5 minutes ago, we're talking about why Dustin Tokarski is in the league.
Yeah, but for me, it's like, well, you can still be a goalie in this league. Give up a bad goal every now and then, but it's just that every single goal, is what I have frustration towards. And the bottom line is there's only two goalies who I anticipate will almost never give up a bad goal, and it's Igor Shesterkin and Andrei Vasilevsky. Everyone else has some kind of flaw.
I'd like to do this again at some point, like next year.
Yeah, totally.
Summer of TTG. Like, I feel like this is something that I would absolutely like to revisit. I'm going to save these so we can kind of maybe figure out if people move up or down. And we add some new names to the list, obviously. But yeah, I think that's really... Anything you took away from this, Jerk?
I think my takeaway was similar to what Kevin was saying, where you have a lot of people who get impatient with their goalies fast. Case in point is Aiden Hill. And if you noticed, I didn't have Aiden Hill ranked. That has to do with the 25 games thing. But teams do tend to, at least the teams in the middle of the league, they get sick of their goalies really quick. Obviously, the elite teams, they keep their goalies forever, which is, evidenced by your Vasilevsky, your Shesterkin, your Hellebuck, your Gibson, I was going to say Grubauer, but not so much now. And then you have your crappy teams where it's like the Sharks, Martin Jones, it's, run a day back, 896 again, where it's like, they stick with the shitty goalie no matter how many times they get burned. And then the teams in the middle, like, the one I always go back to is like Calgary. Like between Kiprusoff and Markstrom, how many times did they find the one, right?
Yeah.
And then they gave up 2 years in. And that was my biggest takeaway. The other thing that I took away, and I think I'm not so much surprised about our S tier, our A tiers I thought would be a bit closer together. Like I personally thought we were all in agreement about Grubauer, Gibson, Hellebuck, Sorokin, that kind of stuff.
Saros,
yeah.
I struggled. Yeah, I mean, like I said, with Gibson, I just struggled because it's like, is he still elite, or is this like, and that's why I put him and Quick in the same tier.
Yeah. I think that
two goalies that I once absolutely believed were elite. I'm just not sure anymore.
I think if we had even more tiers, and we don't need more tiers, but I'm just saying if we had even more tiers, we'd probably be a little bit closer to one another in our rankings, because you might see a Grubauer in between A and B, for example.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. I enjoyed this. I thought this was fun.
Yeah,
this was super fun. I'm glad that
Absolutely.
we did it. I hope that everyone enjoyed it. Obviously, if you are probably, a lot of people didn't watch this live, obviously, going up against the playoff game. The schedule was what it was, and this is the day that we could do it. I am gone next week, so we did run a little long this time than we have on our previous shows, but you have a whole week a whole extra week to listen to it. If you have any comments on any of our lists, if you want to add your comments in, you want to attack Jerk for ranking Reimer where he did, do so in the comments below. If you want to yell at me for ranking Capo Kakinen where I did, do it in the comments below. You can also hit us up on Twitter. I am at Ian Blogs Hockey on the Twitter machine. You can find Kevin Lacey at Kevin Lacey 22, and Hockey Jerk is at Hockey_Jerk. Do not forget the underscore. In fact, respect the underscore. Mm-hmm. Final thoughts, gentlemen?
I'm going to regret my Carter Hart ranking in another year when he falls on his face yet again.
Oh.
However, I would like to commend A-tier goalie Darcy Kemper for a brilliant 37 save performance in Game 4 against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So you keep that up. Even though I'm not even a fan of Darcy Kemper, but I just feel like I need some vindication after being the only one who put him in that tier. So there you go. I'm at Kevin Lacey 22, as Ian mentioned, on most social media platforms, and I want to wish everyone, including you, Ian, a happy Canada Day next week.
We'll see if I'm still allowed in the country.
Oh, yeah. Not in Alberta, anyway.
Not in Alberta, that's for sure. All right, Mr. Hockey Jerk, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. So I mentioned it earlier in the show, and as I expected, my prediction came through. I just got a text from fellow Teal Town USA podcaster Ryan. He is offended that Ottinger was not in my elite list. As I predicted. So, Ryan, if you're listening, I don't know what to tell you. I thought this was a lot of fun. I think, let's be real here. Everybody does the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody, except for us, is going to go into the weeds for almost 2 hours on 53 NHL goalies. But we did it because it's fun for us, and I hope that the enjoyment we took out of this translated to your computer screen, phone screen, Apple headphones, whatever you got. These things are a lot of fun for us, and we banter back and forth, as you saw, and I think that's what makes it really enjoyable. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, Ian said where to do that, but if you want more stuff like this, follow the show.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you ever have, if you guys have any ideas for stuff like this that just seems like completely off the wall, throw it our way. Chances are we'll do it, because we give no Fs. We don't.
Unless you're Arundel.
Correct. And then your ranking hurts our soul. All right. So again, if you want to watch the show again or listen to it or see everything else that we do, tealtownusa.com. You can follow us on all social media. You can follow us. You can get us in audio format on all the audio formats, Google, Spotify, Apple, whatever you kids are using these days. Again, we hope you enjoyed the show. We will be back probably in just over a week, where we will find something else to do again. But if you, like I said, any comments or anything like that, leave them below. But other than that, we are done. Thank you all for hanging out with us on this wonderful Wednesday evening.